Welcome to the 700 Club. The violence in Israel is escalating. Terrorists fired more than 300 rockets and mortars within 24 hours. Israel's Defense Force responded with more than 100 strikes inside Gaza.
Who is really behind the riots of the past few weeks? And will this battle turn into an all-out war? Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Beginning Monday during the day, and then throughout the night, Hamas and Islamic Jihad fired barrages of rockets into Israel. On Tuesday, they hit two buildings in the Israeli coastal town of Ashkelon, wounding some 30 Israelis, and later hit this home in Ashdod. On Monday afternoon, sirens wailed in the city of Jerusalem for the first time since 2014. These Israelis had gathered on Jerusalem Day to march into the city, celebrating the reunification of Jerusalem in 1967. Police also evacuated the Western Wall during the sirens. Several rockets did hit communities on the outskirts of Jerusalem, damaging homes. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu warned Hamas and other Islamic groups.
This evening on Jerusalem Day, the terrorist organizations in Gaza have crossed the red line and attacked us with missiles in the outskirts of Jerusalem. Israel will respond with great force. We will not tolerate attacks on our territory or our capital, on our citizens or our soldiers.
Netanyahu also warned Israelis the current conflict could go on for some time. The Israel Defense Force responded with airstrikes at Hamas targets inside the Gaza Strip to stop the rocket fire. Hamas said 24 were killed, including a number of children. The IDF says some of those who died were caused by stray rockets fired by Hamas. Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas's Fatah Party called for more demonstrations in Jerusalem with this video. This is Jerusalem calling to its residents. And Jerusalem, we will redeem it with our lives. We will sacrifice for the sake of the Al-Aqsa Mosque until the last breath. We will turn the world upside down for the sake of this homeland. Former UN Ambassador for Israel Danny Danon told CBN News Abbas has been behind the riots of the past few weeks.
We have to understand that it is not a spontaneous riot. It is orchestrated by President Abbas from the beginning. He decided to cancel the elections in the Palestinian Authority, and he knew that there would be a lot of criticism about that. And immediately, he put the focus on Jerusalem. They are using the holy site of Jerusalem in order to incite riots and violence.
The riots for the last 2 weeks and the rockets of the last several days come during the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, when there were increased calls for martyrdom, jihad, and holy war. Hopes were high that the situation would calm down with the end of Ramadan on Wednesday. Now it looks like Israel could be preparing for war.
Well, Chris Mitchell joins us now from Jerusalem for more on this escalating situation. Chris, tell us about the motives here. How did this start?
Well, Gordon, many times it started, and I'll just follow up on what UN Ambassador Danny Danon just said. Really, it began a few weeks ago, and that's when Mahmoud Abbas, the president of the Palestinian Authority, canceled elections. Now, you have to remember that Mahmoud Abbas is in the 15th year of a 4-year term. And now that upset many, many Palestinians. So according to Danon and many others that I've talked to, he wanted to create a distraction. So the distraction was using Jerusalem as a focal point for many Palestinians. That's when the riots began. It was also fueled by what's called these TikTok videos of Arabs hitting and coming against Orthodox Jews. So that is part of what's happening right now. And so he gained popularity. And what Hamas did, and this is part of the internal Palestinian dynamic, because Abbas was getting popularity, Hamas began to launch these rockets. But however, Hamas may have miscalculated the response by Israel. Right now, you have hundreds of rockets coming into a place called Ashkelon. We're getting updates almost moment by moment by the IDF. 2 Israelis are dead, dozens wounded right now, and it remains to be seen how forceful Israel will retaliate and whether or not we're going to maybe a land war. That's why it's so important to be praying right now, Gordon, for the peace of Jerusalem.
Well, one of the motives that I'm hearing in the press is that there was an Arab neighborhood near the Al-Aqsa Mosque and residents were being evicted. What was the cause of that?
Okay, little history, Gordon. It's Sheikh Jarrah. This was is Jewish-owned territory before the 1948 war. Then Arabs, Jordan gave some Arabs that land, and there actually was a compromise between the Jewish owners and the Arab residents, and the Arab residents were going to be allowed to stay. The lawyers had worked out a compromise. There was going to be some sort of symbolic rent that the Arabs were going to pay to the Jewish owners. However, that was not what the Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas wanted. So the PA lawyers came in and they destroyed that compromise, and that's led much to the situation we have right now. So Sheikh Jarrah was actually a focal point that Mahmoud Abbas has used to be able to foment this rallying call to many Palestinians here in Jerusalem and around the West Bank and around Israel to rally around Jerusalem, the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and so here we are several weeks after that foment by Mahmoud Abbas.
Well, it seems to strain my belief that I'm not hearing that story in the Western media at all. The facts are kind of clear on the ground that this neighborhood is owned with Jewish ownership, and they've given the right for the Arabs to live there for a long time. They tried to work out a compromise, but it just, why aren't people getting that story? Why isn't that story getting out?
It's a great question, Gordon. I think that's the story of the last 2 decades that I've been here. Many times what's really happening on the ground, the true details of what's happening gets lost, and that's part of the strategy of Mahmoud Abbas or Hamas, and that's what Danny Danon said to us last night. He said, you know, they're masters at this, of how to deceive, to distract, and to obfuscate, to sort of muddy the waters. So if you look at what's happening on the ground, you see a different story, and that's what we're trying to tell. I'll just add this, Gordon. We talked to one person that was in touch, was one of the residents there in Sheikh Jarrah, and she said most of the people that are coming out and demonstrating are outsiders, not the people there in Sheikh Jarrah themselves.
Well, let's also look at how did fireworks get on the Temple Mount, the rocks that they're throwing, the fireworks that they're setting off. I've been there. You've got to go through some pretty strict security to get to the Temple Mount. How did that end up there?
That's a good question. You know, what happens sometimes is they smuggle these fireworks and these rocks inside. And what's happened in part of the rallying cry is what happens is when the Israeli police actually go into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, many times these rocks and fireworks are pre-planned. In other words, they'll have piles of these rocks inside the mosque. They throw them at the police. It actually provokes the police to come in, and that exacerbates the situation. So they're smuggled in. How they do it, I don't know, Gordon. But that's all part of the strategy to provoke Israel to getting into the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And then Israel is condemned. Israel is blamed. All part of what's happening. We've seen it play out over and over again. We've seen this movie before. Sometimes it doesn't end well. That's why we need to pray for the peace of Jerusalem.
Amen. Let's pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Thanks for the insights. Thanks for the reporting. And Chris, please stay safe in Jerusalem today. Well, if you want to know more of the history of this, we have a movie for you. It's called In Our Hands. It shows the reunification of Jerusalem back in the Six-Day War in 1967, how that war started. There's a DVD extra showing the battle with the Egyptian Air Force. And then many people don't know that the Jewish quarter in the Old City, when Jordan held Jerusalem, talk about ethnic cleansing. They completely removed all the synagogues in the West Bank, all the synagogues in Jerusalem, and all the Jews. It was illegal to be Jewish and live in Jerusalem. Contrast that with today, where Israel recognizes and allows for Muslims, the whole Muslim quarter, Christian quarter. It's an incredible contrast. But when you understand the history, then when you see today's headlines, you're informed and you're not deceived by what is obviously a setup and obviously an attempt to try to control world opinion. So it's yours for a gift of any dollar amount. You can get instant streaming, 4K streaming right now. We'll also send you the DVD with the DVD extra. It's yours for a gift of any dollar amount. All you have to do is call us. 1-800-700-7000. Well, in other news, Americans are already feeling the pinch at the pump. Gas prices are up 6 cents a gallon, and supply is short in some parts of the country. John Jessup has that story from our CBN News Bureau in Washington.
Thanks, Gordon. The Russian cyber gang DarkSide admits it launched the ransomware attack against Colonial Pipeline, posting a statement in which it said it never meant to create havoc and that its goal was to make money. Officials say the main pipeline won't be up and running for several more days. Meanwhile, gas prices are up 6 cents a gallon in the past week. Some parts of the country starting to see gas shortages. An estimated 7% of stations in Virginia reportedly out of gas. President Biden pledging to take up the issue with his Russian counterpart.
I'm going to be meeting with President Putin, and so far there is no evidence based on from our intelligence people that Russia is involved, although there is evidence that the actors' ransomware is in Russia. They have some responsibility to deal with this.
On Capitol Hill, congressional leaders are pointing out the need to protect not only pipelines, but the electric grid and communications and financial systems from cyber attacks. Well, children between the ages of 12 and 15 will soon be able to get the Pfizer vaccine, the FDA announcing its approval Monday after the company reported 100% effectiveness. Some parents, though, are responding cautiously. A poll showing 32% of those with children under 18 say they'll wait until they see the results themselves, while 29% say they'll have their kids vaccinated as soon as possible. This as nearly 60% of adults have gotten at least one dose of the vaccine, and the number of cases and hospitalizations continue to fall. Vac cases are at a 7-month low. Well, currently, India is the global epicenter of the virus, the country reporting nearly 330,000 new infections Tuesday and 3,876 deaths. All this made worse by a nationwide oxygen shortage. George Thomas reports that at one local hospital, CBN's Operation Blessing in India is stepping up to help meet the need.
With coronavirus infections in the U.S. dropping to their lowest levels in 7 months, India now under pressure to go into total lockdown as the nation grapples with the world's worst virus outbreak. The record daily infections soaring as demand for medical oxygen jumped 7-fold.
Because of the demand for oxygen, there is no doubt the black marketing, and the prices have gone up like 300 to 400 times each. But the people are desperate to get oxygen.
Operation Blessings Victor Emmanuel is part of the team delivering 150 critical cylinders of medical oxygen to the Philadelphia Ambala Mission Hospital.
Now by Operation Blessing providing the oxygen to the hospital, we can treat close to 950 people over a span of 2 weeks. So that's a great blessing to the patients that are coming to the hospital.
The hospital, founded by an American missionary in 1887, is a designated COVID center treating hundreds of patients. The hospital's director telling CBN News that the nationwide lack of oxygen only compounds the crisis.
When the patients come with a low oxygen saturation, it is really a problem. Like we have to refuse the patients to get into the hospital.
Dr. Sadiq says the virus is devastating many Indian lives, including many Christians. More than 230,000 have died here from COVID so far, and experts warn deaths may double in coming weeks. Dr. Sadiq says the hospital is more than just a place to treat patients.
When the patient comes, every day we are praying 3 or 4 times for the patients, and when they come, they feel that there is a divine power working in the hospital.
India's health experts welcoming President Biden's move to waive COVID vaccine patents, allowing countries like India to boost their supply. Emmanuel urging people around the world to remember India during this time.
There is a lot of suffering all around. And I urge you to please pray for the nation of India for healing, for God's comfort and peace.
George Thomas, CBN News.
So much suffering. Thanks, George. Gordon, back to you.
You know, there is so much suffering in India, and you can see there's a lack of just even the protective gear for the hospital workers, a complete lack of oxygen, a huge black market in oxygen. Operation Blessing is in the process of pivoting to be able to supply much-needed vaccinations to India, and that's on its way. And it's all thanks to you. If you're a member of the 700 Club, you're part of that outreach. You're part of helping India.